What is it about Skinwalker Ranch that has been mystifying and terrifying people for years? Why does the internet think it is so deeply creepy? In legend, the area, located in the Uinta Basin in eastern Utah, has always been reputed by the local inhabitants to be a hotbed of paranormal activity. The ranch and the surrounding desert lands are known for frequent UFO sightings in the 1960s and 70s, and in the 90s, it was purchased by the Sherman family. The previous owner of the ranch sold the property to the Shermans on the cheap, but implored the family to never dig into the ground. The Sherman family arrived at their new property to find that each and every door inside of the ranch was locked down by deadbolts and chains, with no explanation left by the previous resident. Undaunted, the Shermans renamed the property Sherman Ranch and went about their work, rearing their cattle. Little did they know that over the following 2 years, they will lose 20% of their herd to unnatural deaths, including inexplicable cattle mutilations. One spring day, the Sherman's eldest son was inspecting the property following a storm. As he reached a ditch, he found one of the ranch's cows stuck in the mud below. The cow seemed to not be in distress, so he decided to go about the rest of his inspection before returning to help the stranded beast. What he found in the ditch mere moments later would haunt him and the rest of the family for the rest of their lives. The cow had been cut in half around its torso, with its back half completely missing. The cut was clean, as if the poor beast was dissected surgically and deliberately. Stranger still, the remaining front half of the cow seemed to be drained of all of its blood. The Shermans would go on to report finding identical victims 3 more times. Other cattle were routinely found dead on the ranch, usually with a punctured left eye and missing organs, as if they had been removed by an unknown presence. The family claims to have encountered a wolf 3 times larger than any normal wolf they had seen before. When it approached the family, they shot at it, but when the creature was shot, it did not even flinch at the attack. Even stranger stories emerged from the area, from the livestock mutilations to glowing orbs of light zigzagging across the sky, and sightings of the Skinwalker. As these stories began to infiltrate the surrounding community, increased interest in the area attracted the curious and wealthy, ultimately pushing the Shermans to their breaking point in their fight to keep their ranch. The Shermans were eventually forced into selling the property to an outsider to the community, a billionaire real estate developer. In 2016, the property yet again changed hands to another billionaire land investor. The goal of its mysterious owners has always been to purportedly conduct research and verify the fantastic claims long being made about the area. With so many unexplained phenomena spanning decades, likely explanations are few. However, the most plausible explanation that could make any sense of all of these occurrences could be where the legend becomes real. For all of these different groups, authorities, and scientific bodies to be running a scam on the general public, their conspiracy would have to be one of uniquely massive proportions. The coordination needed between them would be too unheard of for these events all to be falsified. It would be impossible to keep up the ruse for so long. While reality TV is not known for being especially true, a reality show could very well be a legitimate way to raise funds for continued research. So, what is everyone getting wrong about Skinwalker Ranch? The most plausible answer is that Skinwalker Ranch is in fact home to a wormhole. The indigenous lore of the Ute and Navajo peoples tells of a malevolent, shape-shifting creature the ranch was named for that has preyed upon the area and has been named in curses. Little is known about the Navajo origins of the Skinwalker, mostly due to the tribe's reluctance to discuss such matters with those who have not experienced Navajo culture firsthand. However, according to legend, the Skinwalker had been invoked by the Navajo as a curse upon the neighboring Ute tribe, who had allegedly participated in the growing Spanish slave trade. According to legend, the Skinwalker was a Navajo shaman whose heart had corrupted after practicing dark medicinal magic. A fully corrupted Skinwalker is said to lose their humanity, instead taking on the forms of beasts of the land or birds of the sky. A Skinwalker in disguise would be able to infiltrate a community and bring harm to those who did not practice extreme caution. The Skinwalker could likely just be a creature hailing from another dimension, traveling the wormhole, acting as a waypoint between worlds. Are these visitors from across space and time the same beings behind the many UFO sightings? After a string of supernatural occurrences, the present-day owner of Skinwalker Ranch called 2 scientists from the first investors' research team to camp out atop the basin overnight with camera equipment in hopes they would finally find real answers. What they did see would change theories about Skinwalker Ranch forever. Well past the midnight hour, under starry skies, the 2 scientists witnessed an orange orb of light form in the basin below, burning, fiery, and bright. Stunned, they watched as the orb seemed to stretch, transforming into a long tunnel several meters long. It was then, they claim, that they witnessed a humanoid creature emerge from one end of the tunnel of light, crawling on all 4s. Frozen in fear, the scientists could only watch on from above as the figure stood itself upright and slowly walked away from them, disappearing into the dark night, with the fiery wormhole shrinking and closing behind it. Is it possible these researchers saw a Skinwalker centered around this ominous figure with attributes that were clearly not human? Fully upright, its body had wide, rounded shoulders which tapered in unbroken lines down to the feet. There were no distinguishable arms or legs. The head was skull-shaped, with large, round, and pupilless eyes. These things were almost my height, standing upright on skinny legs with bony, L-shaped knees, if they were knees at all, and up on their toes like spastic ballerinas. Their torsos were too long for their legs, and emaciated. There was no neck to speak of, as if their heads had been nestled haphazardly between the tapering shoulders, except they were jutting forward, as if the things were craning to get a better look. Their muzzles were much shorter and weirder looking than you'd expect from canines, as if they were a sickly imitation of people, but still way too dog-like. Both had their lips drawn back in a half-snarl, half-grin with yellow fangs showing. Their eyes reflected a jaundice yellow, the irises dark and beady. The ears were all canine, short and pointed, and there was no escaping that smell, like a raccoon that had been hit by a car, its 3-day-old carcass hidden by tall weeds but reeking in the summer heat. If you've had the experience, you know the smell. One legend tells of a being using its shamanic powers for evil, as it is condemned to wander our world, stuck across both space and time. Members of the United States government have even invested large amounts of money into researching the strange occurrences surrounding Skinwalker Ranch. In declassified documents, the Pentagon's now-known UFO program provided funding from its black budget for investigations on paranormal activity around the site. Previously declassified documents reveal the U.S. government has also funded serious explorations into the possibilities of ESP, astral projection, and of course, wormholes. From the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Preliminary Assessment on Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. The limited amount of high-quality reporting on unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature or intent of UAP. In 18 incidents, described in 21 reports, observers reported unusual UAP movement patterns or flight characteristics. Some UAP appeared to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed. In a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings. The UAP documented in this limited dataset demonstrates an array of aerial behaviors, reinforcing the possibility there are multiple types of UAP requiring different explanations. Our analysis of the data supports the construct that if and when individual UAP incidents are resolved, they will fall into one of 5 potential explanatory categories: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, USG or industry developmental programs, foreign adversary systems, and a catch-all other bin. With the exception of the one instance where we determined with high confidence that the reported UAP was airborne clutter, specifically a deflating balloon, we currently lack sufficient information in our dataset to attribute incidents to specific explanations. What does this mean? Essentially, the government continues to claim ignorance about the nature of these mysterious aerial phenomena. Should we be surprised the powers that be would have no big reveal for the public? Perhaps civilian investigators are even better informed when it comes to UFOs. The best information we have on possible extraterrestrial encounters has had to come from the private sector. The government simply refuses to treat the study of UFOs with deserved seriousness. For those who consider themselves civilian scientists hoping to have their own eyewitness encounter with a UFO, Skinwalker Ranch and its surrounding region would be an excellent place to examine. Prevailing string theory asks, if so much dark matter is able to exist, is it because it does so in parallel or alternate realities, invisible to humanity? There will always be those never willing to accept that which we barely understand, and those who are willing to accept the inherently strange nature of our existence. Even the current owner of Skinwalker Ranch is in support of the wormhole theory. Hypothetically, one of these interdimensional pit stops between far-spread points of space-time happens to have a connection right in our own little galaxy at a creepy ranch in eastern Utah. What could interdimensional visitors possibly be doing here? Do they come in peace, or are their purposes far more nefarious? What else could they be hiding from us? Although we may have found the answer, the mystery continues. What do you believe is the reason for all of the weirdness happening at this desolate ranch in Utah? Goatman's Bridge is said to be plagued by restless spirits, satanic occultists, and even windows to another realm. What is it that makes Goatman's Bridge so deeply creepy? Constructed in 1884, the old Alton Bridge was intended to accommodate the growing horse traffic between the cities of Denton and Copper Canyon, Texas. Decades later, as commerce flourished in the area, fortune favored a black goat farmer by the name of Oscar Washburn. Washburn's reputation as an honest, hard-working businessman secured his family's goat farm as a staple of the community. With his goat farm positioned just a bit north of the bridge, Washburn proudly erected a sign nearby reading, "This way to the Goatman." But not all of the townsfolk appreciated the financial success of a black man, and some even sought to target Washburn and his family as an outlet for their hate. The newly formed Ku Klux Klan was active in the region, and attacks on black Americans were increasingly common at the time. Washburn's goats were known for their high-quality products, and likely enviable to violent racists who would be deeply offended by his honest work. One sweltering summer night in August 1938, Oscar Washburn was out in his field, tending to his goats. As the legend goes, Klansmen in the local government approached Washburn, kidnapped him, and brought him to the old Alton Bridge. It was there, over the side of the bridge, that the men lynched Washburn. The murderers then traveled to Washburn's ranch house, where they expected to find his family. Some versions state that all the murderers found, however, was an empty home. Others believe the KKK may have returned to see the victim's family there, brutally annihilating Washburn's wife and children as well. After waiting for some time, the Klansmen gave up and decided to return to the site of their lynching. What they found horrified them. The noose they had left now swung empty in the wind, with Oscar Washburn's body nowhere in sight. Unable to explain the body's disappearance, the murderers panicked and fled. There have been repeated rumors of hauntings and paranormal sightings ever since then. Most stories paint Washburn as the vindictive ghost. It has also been rumored that the ghost of Washburn's wife haunts the area, mourning and looking for her family. As if Washburn's story were not tragic enough, there is another possible source for the ghostly Goatman. In the early 1860s, even before the Klan officially came into being, a runaway slave was murdered in the exact same area. The Creole goat herder named Jack Kendall is said to have been hanged by Copper Canyon cowboys from a tree where the bridge was later built. Supposedly, they decapitated his body, which then reanimated and ripped off a nearby goat's head to wear on his body while Kendall's head still hung in the noose. The terrified slavers blamed the vengeful reanimation on voodoo, and the rest of the legend remains lost to those who were witness to such horrors. Just a few decades later, Oscar Washburn's reputation as the Goatman and subsequent murder is solidified in Texas word of mouth. As details of the grisly murder of Washburn spread throughout the following season, the bridge became a source of great apprehension for the locals. Pedestrians crossing the bridge would frequently report feeling a hand grabbing at their arm, only to turn and see no one walking beside them. Nighttime saw the occasional sighting of a tall, spectral figure watching on from the opposite side of the bridge with glowing red eyes. Was this ghostly apparition the Goatman, revealing himself to passers-by? What did the Goatman want from them? Why do similar reports of unexplained phenomena persist to this very day? While there are no records of these horrific tales, the sordid past of rural Texas leads one to easily believe within some version of these stories lies the truth. Did the original Goatman feel the presence of history repeating itself and create the ghost of Washburn in his own image? Has the region the bridge was built upon always been a well of negativity and evil? Sometimes evil is drawn to a place for a reason, and perhaps the murders and consequent trauma to this specific place have cursed it for an eternity. As the decades passed and the cities of Denton and Copper Canyon grew, so did the demand for the automobile. As the old Alton Bridge was originally designed to support horse traffic, the width did not accommodate passing cars. Therefore, cars would have to cross one at a time. This tedious process was made even slower by something odd. Motor vehicles would frequently break down in the middle of the bridge. Car doors would lock and unlock on their own. Motorists could not explain this strange phenomenon, and eventually superstition motivated the cities of Denton and Copper Canyon to construct a new bridge on an alternative route. While this new bridge would be able to avoid any creepy mechanical hauntings, Goatman's Bridge would remain open to daring hikers by way of a dirt trail, where it remains open to this day. However, not all of today's visitors to Goatman's Bridge are innocent passers-by. The paranormal energy radiating from the site continues to attract those seeking to explore the mysteries of this world and beyond. It is said one can summon the Goatman himself by simply knocking 3 times on the bridge. The mysterious significance of the number 3 is said to attract entities from other spiritual realms of existence, and curious, perhaps deeply foolish, passers-by continue to tempt the Goatman. Despite the possible consequences, curiosity about the other side will bring those who will find the risk worthwhile, even to disturb that which might prefer to be left alone. The stories of the Goatman do serve to remind us of the true monsters that exist in the world, the people who would do such harm to others by perpetuating a cycle of hatred and vengeance. If the Goatman exists, provoking him is probably unwise, but for those who choose to visit the bridge and attempt to summon him, the ascending smell of rotting flesh and faint glow of red eyes growing brighter might make them wish they hadn't come at all. Is this sight a conduit for a power we do not understand? Is what we perceive to be the Goatman in fact an entity attempting to reach out to us, to contact us? Rumors even persist of strange, occult activity occurring in the creek underneath the bridge. Whispers of cloaked strangers circled in the dank shadows below, performing bizarre, violent rituals. Are these occultists communing with the energy we know as the Goatman? Popular ghost hunting groups have frequented the bridge, claiming to experience physical assaults while on the bridge, of hearing the half-man, half-goat growling to get off his bridge. Others have said they were even thrown into the water below by an unseen presence. To this day, strange encounters at the bridge are shared, making it a known hotspot for abnormal phenomena, from the fairly tame to the shockingly violent. Haunting stories keep coming. Startled eyewitness reports of the strange happenings continue to circulate online, keeping the legend of Goatman's Bridge alive. According to one frantic account from Reddit user Rick Ribera 93, sincerely, Fat Bridge. I don't believe in God, let alone ghosts, but the Goatman is real. Freshman year of college, I went there with some friends. We decided to meet in the parking area before the bridge. I get out of the truck and decided to mock the bridge by yelling and dancing to show how many I didn't give about the stories. About 30 seconds in, I looked across the weeds in the river and I saw something red. It looked like a safety reflector, like the ones on bicycle wheels. But there was 2 of them. I'm not being metaphorical, but I was frozen in fear. For what felt like an eternity, I could not move. What looked like free-floating eyes glowed brighter red, and I was let go. I ran so fast back to the truck, and without question, we drove away. Last time I tried to go there with some friends, during the midday afternoon, there was an accident that was blocking the road. That's all the sign I need to not go back. Another Redditor, Melissa Macabre, writes, I had just heard stories from classmates back when I was in high school about how creepy the bridge was, but it wasn't until 2 or 3 days ago that I visited it for myself. The first night I was there, my brother and a friend of mine met up with a group of ghost hunters, and they told us the story of how the bridge became known as Goatman's Bridge. While we were there, the group of ghost hunters decided to show us just how serious it all was. They grabbed a flashlight and placed it in the spot where Oscar Washburn was lynched, and asked if he could show us all his presence by turning off the flashlight. To my amazement, the flashlight turned off. I was watching intently as the light started getting dimmer and dimmer until there was nothing but darkness. To me, the scariest part was when he asked if he was angry at the people who had murdered him and if he thought they should be brought to justice. Without hesitation, the flashlight came back on and seemed to be brighter than before. Last night, I was back at Goatman's bridge, and I decided to go prepared with my own flashlights and camera. We heard strange noises coming from the side of the bridge. We were alone, unlike the night before, so we knew it couldn't have been other people there. There are woods somewhere along the bridge, and it is said Oscar has been seen there at night. Accounts vary, but the history of Goatman's Bridge continues to beat for anyone willing to reach out and feel its pulse. If you were to come across its weathered wooden planks, would you dare knock 3 times and await an answer from the Goatman? Winchester Mansion. What is it about this supposedly haunted house the internet finds so deeply creepy? What if the house was never actually haunted by angry ghosts, but grew into a spectral gateway because it was inadvertently constructed as a labyrinth? The most haunted house in the world was purchased by Sarah Winchester in 1885 when it was a simple San Jose farmhouse. Shortly before, in 1881, Sarah's husband, American rifle magnate William Wirt Winchester, died of tuberculosis. She fled the East Coast, but was she on the run from vengeful poltergeists? According to most commonly discussed legends, her husband provoked the ire of angry ghosts sent to the grave by his guns. In reality, guns were largely seen as a useful tool that had helped win the Civil War. Sarah was not running away, but rather toward opportunity. She had suddenly become a millionaire 20 times over. She did what any 46-year-old woman with a limitless wallet and a new home would do: renovate. In her zealousness to expand, Sarah designed the unconventional plans herself, despite lacking any professional training. Intricate woodwork and ornate decoration filled the home, which stretched into hallway after hallway, staircase after staircase, peaking in a room count of 500. In a letter to her sister-in-law in 1898, she wrote, "I am constantly having to make an upheaval for some reason. For instance, my upper hall, which leads to the sleeping apartment, was rendered so unexpectedly dark by a little addition that after a number of people had missed their footing on the stairs, I decided that safety demanded something to be done." Dead ends of abandoned expansions, still left up continuously, added to the maze as new expansions were added on. The architectural pioneer grew the house without thought for sense in the layout, and eventually the home could only be described as a behemoth maze. Is it possible that the place becoming a dizzying maze is what made it an alluring attraction for paranormal forces? While Sarah was not a recluse, her preferred quiet life was far different from the other Bay Area millionaires frequently seen at society parties and events. This led to gossip from locals, culminating in an article from the San Francisco Chronicle on February 24th, 1895. It reported, quote, "The sound of the hammer is never hushed. The reason for it is in Mrs. Winchester's belief that when the house is entirely finished, she will die." Almost all ghostly rumors can be linked back to the San Francisco Chronicle's long-spun yarn about the eccentric widow. These talks about town eventually grew into the frightening stories about Winchester Mansion that we still discuss to this day. Fabricated rumors, like the existence of a seance room within the house, were far easier to give cause to Sarah's air of mystery. The notion that Sarah was consciously creating the labyrinth in order to confuse ghosts was another tall tale in the life of the especially non-superstitious millionaire. The mansion was reshaped massively by an earthquake in 1906 that downsized the house substantially, while increasing its labyrinthine qualities of hallways and stairs to nowhere, roomless doors, and unreachable levels. Modern-day visits to such a large place will certainly result in cold drafts and eerie noises, and paranormal activity captured there is largely speculative amongst serious ghost hunters. For those that insist the Winchester Mansion is an otherworldly home, it can be said that labyrinths create a well of transcendental energy. Are spiritual mazes easy for specters to treat as gateways into our world? Sarah may not have been trying to create a psychically powerful maze on purpose, but did she do so unintentionally? The traditional labyrinth is a meandering path, typically on one flat plane, leading to the center of a great circle. Their known existence in human use dates back over 4,000 years. Meant to evoke spiritual pilgrimage and mindfulness, they are a prime example of sacred geometry. Pagan rituals have long used labyrinths as gateways to supernatural realms. It is thought that wandering through one can lead to an altered state of consciousness that allows walkers to glimpse into a reality vibrating at a higher frequency. Interactions with higher frequency beings could easily be a different name for ghostly encounters. Angels, demons, and apparitions are simply human words for what we do not understand, but there are symbols that carry meaning across time and space that spark imagination of the possible in our unconscious. As defined by Robert Ferrer, sacred geometry is the act of studying the divine act of creation and then using that knowledge to create in the same way. By studying nature, we find that the basic building blocks of creation are geometric. Since a divine hand is responsible for originating the numbers and proportions of the manifest universe, that geometry is sacred. Studying sacred geometry leads us to truth and self-understanding. All societies use sacred geometry to construct their temples, sacred places, and art. They are the actual essence of everything that exists. If sacred geometry is a connective force echoed in all energies, is Sarah's house an example of sacred geometry or a perversion of it? Sarah's indifference toward the occult resulted in ignorance as to why her designs were so strange. It is so much easier to believe this massive home-turned puzzle box is the breeding place of a creeping, otherworldly entity than just a spooky mansion. It is true, we can chalk up the haunting experiences to eagerness from visitors to be a part of the American ghost zeitgeist. Yes, it is a large, creaky, drafty house that will make strange noises and gusts of wind. But within the corners and stairwells of this puzzling house, only visitors that have actually stepped inside can describe the energy as feeling different. Just outside of one's periphery vision, some strange specter, a vibration from another dimension without shape, could linger. While spirits drawn in by the patterns of the Winchester house may not mean visitors any harm, it certainly is creepy to imagine that from the depths of the labyrinth, an unseen force could be watching.